Hey, Arman here. Welcome to the NSP Nutrition Show, where we cover training, nutrition, supplementation strategies, and a whole lot more. So stand by. Hey, and welcome to the NSP Nutrition Show. I'm Arman Eckelbarger.
Hey, I'm Frank Mills, and welcome to the NSP show. We appreciate it very much, whether you're watching or listening. Thanks for joining us. Now, today we've got another great show for you. Arm is going to be talking about some of his preferred weight training accessories. And, if you're not using the right equipment, I can see you not having a lot of success. So I'm looking forward to that. And also, we've got some great fan questions today. So, that being said, Armin, let's get started. I'm curious, what made you decide to talk about this today?
Well, when it comes to staying motivated and getting results, I think about using quality weight training accessories. I think they're a must. And, I notice people, some use them, some don't. But I just felt like over the years, I've been training 40 years, they definitely help. And, some people, may not know about some of the different things I use and how I use them. I thought, well, maybe this will give them a good takeaway. But really, I think it's one of those things that you really, when you understand how they work, it can help your training and keep you just a lot more motivated.
Absolutely. Back in the old days, you didn't have a lot of options like you do today, right?
Well, there were some, but they're pretty brutal. They're pretty, back in the day, it was still pretty primitive. Let's put it that way. So,
A lot of calluses back then, right?
oh yeah, yeah. Unfortunately,
Absolutely.
yeah. Or you use
All
a
right.
sponge or something, something to grip the bar with. It's
Right, right.
Harry carry kind of thing.
Or some tape, to wrap up to where you
Nah,
grabbed,
didn't
you
really
know?
use tape, but
No?
everybody was using rags. They'd have a rag
Right.
tied around their wrists and then try to use that. But those would rip and stuff. So, but
Yeah.
it was a good try.
Well, a lot has happened since then. We've come a long way. So,
Oh yeah.
bottom line, what kind of stuff we talking about now?
All right. So one of the things that I feel really important to have is a couple different types of weightlifting belts to help with your lower back and to keep you from less likely to get injured. You can still get injured wearing a belt, but at the same time, it gives you the support that you need because what the weight training belt does is increase the intra-abdominal pressure, kind of like a balloon.
Hmm.
You take a balloon, you squeeze it, everything's tight in there. So this keeps the spine from moving a lot less. Okay,
Right.
especially if it's at a bad angle, it keeps it in a nice tight position. So
Mm-hmm.
you're just more stable. And at the end of the day, it's to help prevent injuries, in my opinion.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So, talk to us about what type of belts that you're talking about, because there's quite a few out there now.
Yeah, so again, I was around as the belt system kind of evolved. And so, back in the day, you just had a regular weightlifting belt, and some of those are really simple. I mean, pure, just to be honest, it's nothing but a piece of leather with a buckle on it. And some of them, would give you some support, and some of them, they just weren't very good.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had the power lifters, and they had their own special design of belts, which made a lot of sense. And so, you have two different types. So I like to use a thinner belt, especially if I'm doing like bent over rows or stiff leg deadlifts, because with the thinner belt, and I'm talking about a good one though too, it doesn't pinch your belly or your sides as much
Mm-hmm.
while you're in the bent over position. Versus a power belt, it's going to pinch and it can actually start to irritate your rib cage depending on where you put the power belt at, because it goes below the rib cage, and sometimes depending on the position you're at, it can start to affect that area. So when it comes to squats and deadlifts and movements where you want to try to keep your spine as straight as possible,
Mm-hmm.
that's why I like the powerlifting belt. And I just found it, since it's a thicker belt, it's a little bit wider. It really makes a difference on keeping your whole core really tight, and you can lift more weight. Pure and simple. I mean, I saw 50-pound increases just by incorporating a good quality belt. So it was a real eye opener too, but and
Hmm.
kind of encouraging because hey, I could use more weight and then have any pain. So that's why I think it's important to understand there's differences between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, with that being said, you don't want to use the belts all the time. You want to
Right.
use them
Right.
for your heavier lifts, so that way you get some naturally strengthening parts of the core and your abdominal area. Because you're going to get some effect because the abdominals have to tighten up to do the lifts. Period. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
it's just a natural process. So when you're lifting raw, as they call it, without the belts and stuff, you're going to get some strengthening of the area. It's just that when you start getting that really heavy stuff, that's when things get kind of ugly. So I will say this: I have the NSP, the thin belt that they have, and I'm real happy with that. The way it
Hmm.
fits, and there's a little bit of a pad in the back, and the way it's shaped, it really doesn't cause any pinching. And it's a double pin, which I like the double pin type belts because they tend to sink tighter around the waistline more evenly versus a single pin. And that's just my opinion, but um, that's one I want to highlight.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
one other thing I forgot to mention is then there's another belt called a dip belt.
Hmm. And how does that work?
All right, so the what you're doing with a dip belt, it's a big wide piece of leather typically with the chain hooked all the way around it. So the chain is on one end and it hooks to the other end. So it can allow you can take a dumbbell or a plate and you take the chain and run it through the plate if you want, which is one of my favorite ways of doing it. Or you can
Mm-hmm.
take the chain and wrap it around the dumbbell so it's secure. So what this allows you to do is to add weight for movements like dips. That's why it's called a dip belt, but
Mm-hmm.
also
Hmm.
pull-ups. It's very effective for pull-ups, and you can really add some new challenges to it because again it hangs from your waist in between the legs. And, and I loved using a dip belt because I was also really impressed how much extra weight I could add onto my actual body weight. Like
Interesting.
I
Hmm.
only weigh now I weigh about 172, but during my training days, I'd weigh 180 or give or take. So when you can add another 50 pounds, which I was known to do, or 90 pounds, I've been able to do, et cetera, add it to the belt. That's a huge differential. So it's going to challenge you really well. And the other thing is,
Mm-hmm.
people, if you're doing a lot of high reps, because you can do the body weight pretty easy, this is another way to increase that intensity and to again add more resistance so you can really challenge yourself. So
Interesting. Hmm. That's hmm. I had never heard of a dip belt. Um,
yeah,
but I always wondered like what would be the effect of doing pull-ups once you can do them easily with your body weight. So now you
yeah.
just
So
helped me understand
yeah, so
what you
that would
can
be
do.
the that'd be a way to you start adding more weight, and of course your reps are going to drop, but then also you'll build up to it. And again, I was able to do good quality pull-ups with 90 pounds hanging off of me. And I mean, that really challenges. Now,
Mm-hmm.
one nice thing about a lot of good quality gyms, they'll actually have a dip belt in the gym, as long as nobody steals it, but they typically have those available. So, but I always have mine with me just in case, because, you once you have it, it lasts forever.
Absolutely. Well, that's funny. I was going to ask you that question, so thanks for answering that. All right. So, what are some of the other things that you use, Armin?
All right, so I train a lot of ways without some type of glove, and at this point, I got to have gloves. Okay, it's just how I'm going to have to roll.
I get that, but maybe you could let the audience why you do feel that way.
Since I've done it with and without, one of the things I have noticed, I am married, and so my wife really prefers not to be having 50 grit sandpaper hands touching her.
That's right.
So that was the big highlight that I had to realize. I was trying to be tough, had the big calluses and
Right.
but your hands get pretty rough. So
Yeah.
so then I had to figure out, well, what am I going to do to to fix it? And then there's a lot of crappy gloves out there too. But anyways, the right kind of gloves, I feel like if you get the right design, it's going to protect the palm of your hand. The bars can kind of press down in that palm area and kind of pinch a little bit. And
Mm-hmm.
so, when you have the ones that have the pad there, it helps take that pressure off and allows you to lift more weight, pure and simple, because you don't have, a pinching or a painful part of the bar. Yeah, so it kind of suppresses that. So I think that's something you should always look for with the gloves. Um, and the other thing is when you have quality gloves versus when you train and you're getting really sweaty, that's
Mm-hmm.
the sweat can cause your grip to slip because you're getting sweaty. So that's another thing. It keeps the sweat from running down onto the hands. It just depends on how intense you're training and how hot it is, but that's another feature to it. Um, and then the with other gloves I've tried, I don't like the ones that cover up your hand. It's like a piece of leather that covers up the fingers, and all you have available is the fingertips. And so it kind of smothers the hand, so to speak. And so I've tried a lot of those. The problem is again, the sweat gets in there, and these things are, like a different type of it's cheap leather. It's not really great leather, but they start to smell brutal after a period of time. So
Right. Right.
I just and they're less expensive, but I just can't stand them. And I think they kind of irritate your hands more than anything. So I prefer a different type of glove, which the thing is with the NSP glove, that's kind of what I like. I like a glove where the fingertips, are free, but you
Right.
got a little bit of cover on the lower part of the fingers, and then the whole palm is covered, and it just then and it just and your thumb's available, so it straps or you strap the glove around your wrist,
Mm-hmm.
but now you got this nice comfort area that can breathe, and it's going to protect your hands. And I just think those are the best. And there's been a lot of different versions of them, but again, I know this is a plug for NSP, but I really like the gloves that they have. I was kind of involved with helping them pick out some of this equipment. And so when we were shopping around for different types, when I found those, I was pretty excited because that's what I prefer to have. Because, there's so many different types of gloves. And when they start smelling bad, it's just not good.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And they can smell pretty brutal.
Dude,
That is for
yes,
sure.
being in a bag covered up and out in the heat. Yeah, and plus
Yeah.
I've had times when you train every day or a lot of days, and so I've had times where they're still wet from the sweat.
Oh
And it's just
yeah.
like you know,
Right. Right.
it's like, well, am I gonna have two pairs of gloves to kind of offset that? I mean, and they get hard and crispy with this with it. It's just like,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Right. Now, how about coming on and off? Because I've worn quite a few types of gloves, and the ones that have the open fingers like you described. Some I've seen have these little tabs to help you pull them off.
Hmm.
Um, but depending on the fabric or the material that the gloves are made out of, are they breathable, or are they easy to come on and off?
Yeah, the ones that NSP has. I mean, yeah, it's real easy to take them off. But the Velcro wraps around your wrist, and once you undo the Velcro, it's it slides right off your fingers. Okay,
Oh,
but
nice.
it
Okay.
stays in place really well. I've got a pair of gloves that typically you get a year or so out of them, and I've had them over a year, and they're still pretty good. So, eventually I'll change them out. But I mean, the padding is staying where it needs to stay. So they got pretty good longevity with them, in my opinion.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So we've talked about gloves and belts. What else do you use, Armin?
All right. So another one that I think is important to help with your back work is you have some straps, and there's
Okay.
different. Yeah. So I mean, straps I think are really critical.
All right. So for anyone who hasn't used straps, how do those work? And how would you implement them into your workout?
Okay, that's a good question. So there's a couple types of straps. You have a strap that is made of heavy. You slide it on your wrist like a little loop, and then what you do, you take the part of the strap that hangs down, and
Hmm.
you wrap that piece around the bar to help with your grip, and you try to get as tight as you can. to the wrist. So one of the problems with those particular type of straps are very effective is they can start pulling on your wrist pretty hard.
Okay.
And I've gotten a few ganglion cysts from that in the past. So I don't like using those as much. They're very effective, but because you're using really heavy weight and you're pulling a lot of weight, they really start to affect your wrist some. So that's one thing I don't like about that style. Now I do like the style that it's kind of a gripper. So in other words, you have this flap that kind of hangs down. You put it around your wrist, and it's a flap that hangs down. There's different versions of this too, and they also make a hook that kind of a metal hook you can use. I just think that one kind of gets in the way too much. But the gripper, you take it, lay it around the handle of the bar. It's just a short piece, and you just put your fingers on the other side to help to hang on to it, and it does work really well. And so we have those at NSP just because I prefer those over the other straps. So
Hmm.
and they held up really well, and it's padded, so it kind of helps with the grip, and they really stick to the bar well. So that was important too. Like if you're
Nice.
doing
Hmm.
pull-ups and rows and deadlifts, your forearms are going to give out. And so, and again, you want to do your warm-up work and some of the reps without the strap, okay? But once you start getting into the heavy stuff and you want to try and get a couple more reps, then that's where I really like to use the gripper, as I would call it. And again, it helps take that pressure off of the forearms a little bit, enough just so you can squeeze out a few more quality reps. So
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a lot of good information on belts, gloves, and straps, but is there more?
yeah, well, again, it
Oh,
depends on the person and what they want to do. But I really like uh, different types of weightlifting type of shoes. So the only true weightlifting shoe, in my opinion, is the powerlifting shoe. And so there's different brands of those. And one thing I like about them, they have the raised heel. So that's important for like deadlifts and squats, because having that raised heel gives you a really solid surface. Now some
mm-hmm.
people say, well, you're better off doing it barefoot, this and that. And I've tried doing the those kind of movements barefoot, and it just, my feet are too sensitive for that. So it just doesn't
Mm-hmm.
work for me. So when I have the raised heel, I feel really good support. And the way the powerlifting shoe works is it has a strap with the laces, and so the strap allows you to tighten that shoe further, so to make sure your foot doesn't slide around
Right, right.
at the knees. Now, outside of that, then I have the cross training type of shoe, and that one, uh, it's not a running shoe, because the cross training shoe is more stable, so your feet won't slide in it. And there's different versions of that, and I like that for my regular training as well.
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, in my experience, depending on what you're doing, if you don't have the proper footwear, it can really
Yeah.
cause some problems and make it tough on you. So, do you feel this has really made a difference having the proper footwear in your workouts?
Yeah, because I've done it, like back in the early days, what they had when I was training, they had you wear boots. So you had the raised heel and a really firm shoe for your squats and deadlifts. So that's what a lot of guys were using. When they came out with these, they're more stylish for one, but I mean, the other thing is they were designed for the movements, and they're very effective. Like I had a pair of powerlifting shoes that last me 20 years, because the only time you use them is when you're training. So as
Right.
long as everything's still functioning right, they last forever.
Hmm.
So and they were high quality. So but there's different kinds of powerlifting shoes. You just have to find the one that works for you. But the thing is, if your feet slide or the shoe starts to squash down, like a lot of running shoes, I see guys training with running shoes, they're real comfortable, but that heel is designed to absorb the impact. Okay, so when you
Right.
got a lot of weight on there, the heel's going to press down and squash some. You're going to have more tendency for your feet to move, which is going to affect your knees. And that's another thing that I think is important, because you want to make sure your knee movement doesn't move around. It's got to come in straight up and down. like it needs to protect the knee joint and to attack the muscles the way you intend it to be happening. So that's why I don't really like running shoes. Now they're okay for doing calf raises, but I'm not going to wear three types of shoes. So I do
Right.
the
Right.
cross training like my upper body day, or if I'm training legs, I take the powerlifting shoes off, and then I put the cross training shoe on, so I get a better stretch, and because it's a thinner shoe for my calf raises. So
Gotcha.
now you could do heavy calf raises. I mean, real heavy calf raises with powerlifting shoes. It's just that they don't grip the plate very well because of the way they're designed. So that's one of the negatives I would say that I kind of ran into with playing around with that.
Interesting. Well, all this sounds good. You've got a lot of equipment that you've covered. Is there anything else that you feel that's very important to have?
Yeah, so I really enjoy a workout bag because it's when you have the equipment like the straps, the belts, and all that, you got to have one place to put it. And in the old days, we had our own kind of makeup bag that something we put together to haul our junk in. So with the workout bags, I mean, then you can have a place with the belts, the straps, the gloves, a towel, anything else you need, your supplements. There's places they have them set up that you can store your supplements there, like your pre-workout, your post-workout. So that's pretty handy.
Mm-hmm.
And so like when I got the NSP bag, I mean, it's big, which was nice because I've got powerlifting belts, I got my dip belt, I got a regular belt. I mean, I got all kinds of junk in there, so it holds everything. And you have the zipper sections on the side to like keep your supplements or other accessories in, so they're separated. So you
Gotcha.
kind of keep the odor down from the things that are in the middle of the bag, because if you're sweating and stuff, that you're going to have a little bit of odor come from that. So
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, you seem to have everything. Is there anything missing from your list?
all right, so there is another type of accessory that a lot of people like to use them. I've used them on and off, and that's a wrist strap. So if you're having some
Oh.
tendonitis, or your wrists are kind of weak, then like for pressing movements, and you feel like they're not holding up really well, then you could use these wrist straps, which
Mm-hmm.
they hook on the thumb, and then you wrap them around, and then you Velcro it on your wrist. So it does give you support. If power lifters and people doing really heavy lifts that are pressing type movements like them. I just didn't like them as well. I think again, you're sweating everywhere, and so these things get smelly, and you don't need that much support. But if I had tendonitis, then I would use them to kind of help take some of the pressure off. That's the only time I even recommend them for a client. But that is another accessory that it is available, and a lot of people really like them. It's
Mm-hmm.
just that for me, it's like, you know. And NSP does have the wrist straps for people that if you did want to have some, they're good quality. It's just not something I really like to have in my repertoire as far as using on a regular basis. But, you got the gloves on, and your straps, all that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, you covered a lot of stuff and we're getting low on time here. Is there anything else you want to add as we wrap up?
Well, just again, these are my opinions on the kind of gear I think can really help you with your training. But it's up to the person. But with it, I think you help. It helps with less likely to get injuries. You're using the belt, and you know pulling with the straps and stuff. I think you're going to have a better chance of not doing something that's going to injure you. Plus, it makes
Mhm.
like anything. If you have the right gear when you're doing stuff, it makes it more interesting, and you get more out of it. So, and
Mhm.
again, this is my opinion on it, but the key thing is to find accessories that fit and feel the best for you. But you know, I think for my training, I really enjoy using the accessories because I know my lifts are going to be good. It's another confidence builder, but that's just me.
Well, the good thing too, and I just want to let everybody know too, is kind of a disclaimer is a lot of times Armin and I talk about a supplement. Now today we're talking about equipment. A lot of these things you can find on the nspnutrition.com website.
Yeah.
But the thing of it is Armin and I recommend things because we know they work. Armin just told you he was involved in helping NSP find this equipment because he
Yeah,
wanted to make sure that NSP and Armin together, they are actually representing quality equipment to help you have success in your workout. Armin and I don't make any money from doing what we do. We're doing it because we want to help people. So, I don't think a lot of people know that, and we don't really bring it up too much, but I don't want anybody to think like, hey, go to NSP, so we're making money. We're not making money on this. NSP is the company, and we're doing the show for them, but there's no increase in income for either of us for sales or anything like that. We're doing this to help people. We're passionate about it. And, Armin, you
yeah,
do a lot of work on these shows, a lot of research. And this is 40 years of your experiences and things that you've done that has become successful for you. And, I think it's great that you're sharing it with everyone. I don't know how anybody wouldn't want to listen to you for all of the information that you have, your trial and error, man. A lot of work.
well, appreciate that. I mean, again, it's just I'm trying to explain things I feel will help people, and if you don't agree, that's fair. I don't, that's fine. But I do know a lot of things I've done, they do work because I had to kind of figure it out. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that being said, stand by for a quick word from NSP Nutrition, and Armin and I will be right back.
hey, and welcome back to the NSP Nutrition Show. I'm Arman Eckelbarger.
Hey, I'm Frank Mills, and thanks again for joining us here on the show. Now, we always talk about, something after the break. And my thought was, hey, we just talked about all this awesome equipment. At least go on to nspnutrition.com and check it out for yourself. If you're
Yeah.
looking for some new gloves, a new weight belt, hey, whatever, Armin, you've done the research. You know this stuff works. It's right on the NSP Nutrition site, right?
Yeah, and I use it every day. So, I mean, I use all of it every day, pretty
So it
much.
works. I mean, you got me wanting to go and take a look now because it's something that you got me thinking about. So I will definitely look at that equipment today. But
All right,
anyway,
cool.
that being said, let's get on with the show. We got fan questions, and it's interesting. Sometimes we get fan questions that match the show, and sometimes we get fan questions that are totally somewhere else. And today it's totally somewhere else.
Okay.
Um, First one is from Andre, and Andre is from South Florida. It looks like the Miami area, somewhere down
Okay.
there. Andres says, Armin, you say that you've been working out and trying to do different things for 40 years.
Yeah.
How long did it take you in that 40-year process to get to the professional bodybuilder level of where you felt you had everything down? It's a good question.
Yeah, it is a good question. Well, it's like this, in my earlier days, I was pretty competitive, but that was drug related I didn't take drugs, but if I was going to compete at a higher level for a pro card, that's kind of mandatory to be competitive with other guys doing the drugs, even if your genetics are really good. So I kind of threw that towel in the ring in those days. But then when I got in my 50s, I didn't realize that they had men over 50, type men over 45, men over 50, et cetera. They had these other classes. And so I checked it out, and based on what I saw in the competition, I thought, well, I think I can hold my own on that. So that's what really, helped me to decide, okay, well, maybe I'll get this pro card after all, because it's something that is on the bucket list for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I figured I had to work hard, but I did it within about 2.5 years. I finally got it. But I'd already built the physique anyways. Like
Mm-hmm.
my physique at its max was probably when I was like 28, 29. I weighed about 187. and still had a six pack, and that was about as big. I'm 5'7", so that was as big as I ever got. But after I realized some pounds and all this other stuff, that's going to require drugs. I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna work in the field, but I'm not gonna keep competing because it's just. And they didn't really have a lot of natural stuff that was really going on in those days. We could
Right.
compete naturally. So I was like, all right. And even so, getting a pro card on a natural level didn't really do. There wasn't enough interest in it. So that's what happened for me. But
Okay.
uh,
Well,
I finally got it, and it was unfortunately it was kind of a long journey, but hey, it still happened.
and really, it just goes to show that wherever you are in your life, if you set the goal, you have a chance to achieve that if you work hard at it. And,
Yeah.
I think it's very commendable, Armin. So, Andre, hopefully that answers the question. Next question is from Julie right here in the Tampa Bay area.
Okay.
Um,
Cool.
and Julie is asking, she says, guys, I'm allergic to dairy and eggs. And I know
Mm,
that you are critical on eggs, Armin. And she goes, I'm concerned about protein, like types of protein. And she was
yeah.
really interested in the milk and egg protein until she heard egg. She
Yeah.
goes, if I have an allergy to eggs other than meat, is there other ways to get protein? Are there protein supplements or drinks
Well, she
that
could
don't
do.
have egg?
Well, yeah. I mean, you can do. There is whey protein, but it still has. If she's allergic to milk, then you know. So she's allergic to eggs and what else?
Eggs and dairy.
Dairy. Okay. Yeah. If she's allergic to milk, then she can experiment with the whey protein. We have that in NSP too
Okay.
as another alternative. But she'd have to experiment with it and see how she would respond. And I would, you know, be cautious with it. Other than that, though, I mean, other protein you're going to get it plenty from good quality red meat. Okay, so grass fed beef is a great protein. It has a lot of nutrients in it, so that it shouldn't limit her. But if she doesn't like beef, then then you got to work your way down. Then you got turkey, which has more protein than chicken. So you want to, if she likes turkey, use that. Use the chicken, and then if she can afford it, to buy the full spectrum essential amino acids like the Amino 1000 that we have at NSP, or if she has another brand that she likes, then she can look at that. Amino acids they're going to absorb pretty rapidly, so that's another way to
Mm-hmm.
kind of add to the protein. And then the beef liver caps. Um, I'll definitely use the beef liver capsules in between the meals to keep your protein level up. She could also supplement those with the meal too if she wanted. But yeah, she's just gonna have to use the other protein sources. Then you got the fish, you got salmon, and the other types of fish. That, depending on what kind of fish you like, that's another good source of protein. I wouldn't be doing much with the plant protein just because they're not that efficient.
Right.
But the other
Right.
proteins, and besides that, plant proteins don't have any fat in it, and that's why you want to have protein and fat are really good to digest together. So that's another thing you want to kind of keep in mind.
Okay. Well, Julie, hopefully that helps. And we appreciate the questions, and the
Yeah.
input. We always rely on that. And if you have any topics or suggestions or questions for the show, please contact us. You can use the QR codes on the screen, or you can comment on the YouTube channel. There's lots of comments there. Or you can even email us at support@nspnutrition.com. And, Armin, we rely on that content. So we need to keep it coming, right?
Oh yeah. So everybody's got ideas. We'd love to hear them, and maybe we can get your idea on the show. So
Absolutely. And don't forget to share with your friends and family. If we can help
yeah.
one person, that's why we do the show. And we hope that we can do that. That being said, that's the end of the show. We hope you enjoyed it, and join Armin and I next week for a brand new episode of the NSP Nutrition Show.
Hey, thanks for checking out the NSP show. Go to nspnutrition.com where you can find a whole heap of resources to help you achieve stunning definition and eye-popping levels of muscularity. Don't forget you can save 10% on your first order by using the code NSP show at the checkout. Catch you next time.